So when I was a younger guitar player, I basically only knew one or two basic scale shapes. And everything I did, every solo I learned, everything I tried to improvise, every jam I went to, I basically did in your minor pentatonic box shape. And I think that's where a lot of guitar players are at. But the thing about pentatonics is you're capable of doing so much more than your standard box shape. So in today's video, I'm gonna show you some tips and tricks that basically every pro guitarist I've ever known uses to get the most out of the pentatonic scale. If you want to follow along at home, I've got a free PDF download available in the description box below that covers everything we're going to talk about today. And if you want to go deeper, I have a video course called Breaking Out of the Pentatonic Box, which is currently 40% off via that link. While you're down there, please subscribe, really helps the channel out. With that, let's get our guitars tuned up and ready to go. So learning your minor pentatonic scale is something that most guitar players start off with, especially if you're getting into electric guitar. This basic minor pentatonic scale shape Now, a pentatonic scale is a scale that contains 5 notes. Since a pentagon has 5 sides, pentatonic scale has 5 notes. And in this case, we're playing A minor pentatonic, which means we're starting with our root note A on the 6th-string 5th fret. And the intervals in the scale are 1, the root, the minor 3rd, the perfect 4th, the 5th, the flat 7th, or minor 7th, and back to the root. And then it repeats up the octave. But there are other places on the neck to play this scale shape, and this is the first thing to learn. Breaking out of just that standard pentatonic box and starting to connect the different scale shapes up and down the neck will immediately help you to play more melodically and more interesting lines. So for example, I can go down to the scale shape below this standard A minor pentatonic, and the notes and the intervals are still the same. It's the same scale, just played in a different position on the neck. Or I can go up to the next position above my standard box shape. And for this one, I'm going to start with my root note A here on the 7th fret of the 4th string. Then what I can do is start to play licks and lines that combine all of these different scale shapes to move to different positions on the neck. So for example, this lick, where I'm starting down here on the flat 7, the G, and I'm sort of moving diagonally across the 3 different scale shapes to combine and make this interesting ascending lick. Or you can go the other way. Any combination where you're moving from different scale positions. Now, if you reference the PDF download, we're gonna have all of the different scale positions notated on the neck. But I don't want you to practice and learn each scale shape by just running the scales up and down, because that's not how we solo. We don't play a solo by going. Instead, take those scale shapes and try and identify where the key intervals of the minor pentatonic scale are, like the flat 3 and the flat 7. And then create your own licks, create your own lines using these different scale shapes. The next thing that every pro understands when it comes to pentatonics is being able to use major and minor pentatonics. Now, in our previous example, everything I was playing was the sort of traditional minor pentatonic scale. But we can also apply the same 5-note scale idea to the major sound. Now, the scale itself changes. The intervals that we're pulling from the equivalent major scale change, but the idea is still the same. We're using a 5-note scale to outline a major chord instead of a minor chord. So for example, in the key of A, major this time, we're gonna play a 5-note scale, but the intervals are gonna be root, second, third, fifth, sixth, root. And again, just like the minor pentatonic scale, I can play those intervals anywhere on the neck and get my major pentatonic sound. So for example, I could go. Now, the more keen-eyed among you might have noticed something. The scale shape that I just played, that might look familiar. If I just change the root note, if I change where I'm starting the scale from, you might notice something. Both of those are the same scale shape. I'm just changing where I'm starting from. If I start from A, it has a more major sound because it's A major pentatonic. But if I start from here, the 2nd fret of the 6th string, that's F sharp, now it sounds like F sharp minor pentatonic, and there's a reason for that. Relative major and relative minor. Every major key has a relative minor key, and every minor key has a relative major key. What this means is that they share the exact same notes. A major pentatonic, or the A major scale for that matter, has the exact same notes as F sharp minor pentatonic, or F sharp minor. Now, because we know this, we can use this to our advantage when it comes to soloing. Most guitar players are more comfortable with the minor pentatonic scale shape than major pentatonic, myself included, because most of my early years were spent playing solos and learning licks and lines from the minor pentatonic scale shape. Well, if I'm playing in a major key, like A major, I can take those same licks and same ideas from minor pentatonic, but make it sound major just by playing the relative minor. So if I play F sharp minor pentatonic over A major, it's going to sound like A major pentatonic. So how do we find the relative minor or the relative major of a key? Well, on guitar, there's a simple trick that I like to remember. If I'm in a major key and I want to find the relative minor, so in this case, A major, I want to find the relative minor of A major, all I'm going to do is take my root note, A, and I'm going to slide down a minor third, which is 1 whole step and 1 half step. So from A down to F sharp. And if I play an F sharp minor chord here, that's going to give me my relative minor in the key of A. And if you're hip to your harmonized major scale, you'll know that that's the 6th chord of the key. It's based off of the 6th note of the A major scale. Now, conversely, if I'm playing in a minor key and I want to find the relative major, I just go up a minor third. So I go up 1 whole step and 1 half step to A to find my relative major. This works in all 12 keys. Let's say I'm in G major. And I want to be able to play my minor pentatonic licks and lines in the key of G major. Well, I need to know the relative minor, which in this case is E minor. So anytime I play an E minor scale over a G major chord, I'm going to get a major sound. The next trick is to spice up your major and minor pentatonic scales by adding a few notes. Now, technically, these are not considered pentatonic scales anymore because we're adding notes, but it doesn't really matter. So the first note we're gonna add is what's called the blue note, the flat 5. Now, you've probably heard of the blues scale, but in case you haven't, it's really simple. I'm gonna take my standard minor pentatonic scale shape in the key of A minor here. And I'm gonna add a note. I'm gonna add the flat 5, which is right here, or here. So now I have a really dissonant, interesting note. And it can add some color and some texture to your licks and to your lines that wouldn't normally be there if you weren't emphasizing the flat 5. And the interesting part is when you play this interval right here, that dissonance is what kind of pulls your ear and creates this tension and this color in your licks. You can pass by it, or you can like really lean on it and kind of create this texture, this color. But there's other sort of colorful notes that we can add to our scale to spice it up. The next thing might be the third. So remember, we're in the key of A minor here, and our scale is root, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat seventh, root. But what happens if I add the major third in there? Again, it's adding some color and some texture to our lines. We can kind of hint at it by slightly bending to it from the flat third up to the major third. Or we can do like the classic bluesy hammer-on. Now, what if we try a couple different color tones, like the second note of the scale? We would call that the ninth. If we add the ninth in, we get another interesting sort of color. So again, anywhere I'm adding the second note from the scale, which would be here, or here, or here, I get that color. The other note would be the 13th, or the 6th note of the scale here. And you can start to combine and use all of these different color tones to really spice up your minor pentatonic licks, even from just this standard stock box scale shape. Pro tip is to use your pentatonics and combine them with your rhythm playing to create really interesting ways of outlining chords and combining rhythm and lead playing. There's plenty of amazing examples of this, but for me, the first time I remember taking note of it was listening to Jimi Hendrix, specifically Little Wing, where he is so brilliantly playing rhythm and lead at the same time, using largely pentatonic ideas. So as you're moving through that whole progression, every time you get to a chord, there's a way to outline that chord using the pentatonic scale based around that chord shape. And this is why it's important to know your scale shapes and know where your scales and intervals are, no matter where you are on the neck. For example, when he gets up to this first A minor chord from the G, he's outlining it just by using the A blues scale, the minor pentatonic scale with a flat 5. Going to the E minor. But that whole lick, that idea, comes straight from the same thing on the E minor. Now we're moving up to this position. That line is just from the scale. we get to the B minor, and he's using these color tones that we just talked about, the 9ths and the 13ths. And that minor pentatonic scale shape to outline that B minor chord. Same thing with the A minor chord. So anywhere you're playing a chord, there is a pentatonic scale associated with it in that position. So this is where understanding not just your chord shapes, knowing where your fingers go on the fretboard, but understanding the intervals that make up those chords, how those chords are built, can really open doors for you and your playing. You can start to create melody and lick ideas just simply around the chords that you're already playing. And if you can use that and combine the other tricks that we've talked about in this video, being able to move up and down the neck, being able to add color tones and tension tones, then you can really start to unlock the fretboard and understand your pentatonic scales. Like I said, if you want to go deeper on this, I have a video course dedicated to it, the Breaking Out of the Pentatonic Box course. It's actually a mini course. It's only about an hour long. You can do it in one sitting. And if you follow the link in the description box, you can get a special 40% off discount code. And if you'd like, I'd highly recommend checking out the free PDF download that goes with this episode so that you can follow along at home. If you enjoy what I do here, please click the subscribe button and leave a like. It really does help the channel out, and I greatly appreciate it. My name is Rhett Shull. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.